Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be breaking down some Zach Frazier film. Really excited about this one. Got a lengthy cut up for you guys to show you all his strengths that made him a second round pick for the Steelers, as well as some of the weaknesses that he'll have to improve on. At the end of the video, I'll talk a little bit about my projection for him as a pro as we get training camp underway in Latrobe. If you guys would, just make sure you like the video, drop me a comment, subscribe to the channel. All that stuff is greatly appreciated on my end. So if you guys weren't around for draft season, Zach Frazier was my 36th overall ranked player in the 2024 class. One of my favorite things about him is his competitive toughness, which I think really trickles down and shows itself with his finishing ability. So on this play right here, West Virginia is going to be running outside zone. We're going to see a lot of that in Arthur Smith's system. But he realizes that the Mike linebacker is unaccounted for, trying to execute a run through. So he ends up peeling off his path, latches on right here, and then keeps him far away from the play. And you'll notice a consistent theme over the course of this video is just the finishing through the whistle. Something too with Frazier, his grip strength is evident. It really allows him to sustain blocks at a high level, I feel like. Right here, they're running what's called GT counter. So you're pulling the guard in the tackle. He's responsible for the down block on the 3 technique. You'll see really good hand placement right here. And he's going to drive his feet just through contact for another really good finish. And there are really just so many examples on film of him straining to sustain blocks late in the rep, showing off that motor, driving guys into the dirt, even if he's far away from the play to an extent. For a team like the Steelers that really wants to establish the run under new offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, his tone-setting physicality up front is definitely something that I think Pittsburgh was really attracted to throughout the draft process. And like I said, Pittsburgh's going to be extremely zone-heavy in 2024, running a lot of mid and wide zone. Frazier has the requisite athleticism to function well enough in this scheme. And here's an example of him that I shared on Twitter a couple of days ago when I was doing this cut-up of him uncovered, climbing to the second level where he's, under control. Once he gets there, he's going to use that low right hand to steer the defender towards the sideline and help create an enormous cutback lane for the running back. And we get an explosive play as a result out of that. But when I really looked at Frazier's film, I was honestly even more impressed than I was through the draft cycle back when I scouted him. And Pittsburgh was one of the best games I saw from him last season. On this rep right here, he's going to be executing what I've seen referred to as like a rip and run technique to cut off the 3 technique. So right here, he's going to try to cut off this defensive tackle. But watch how he plays through the whistle and just stays with the block, 15 yards down the field. And, I think that for me, when I talked about wearing teams out physically with the run game, Frazier's just a pest, man. Like, he also wears you down and wears his opponents down from a mental perspective. And that's something that I think is really valuable, especially for a team that's really looking forward to establishing a physical identity up front. These next 2 plays against TCU were really nice. This first one really shows him doing a good job, refitting his hands. You'll see his right hand get underneath that shoulder pad, keeps his hands inside, good pad level. And then you see the lower body strength and the core strength to create that movement up front. Shockingly enough, we get another pancake finish right there, which you really like. Same thing in this next clip, getting those hands tight and underneath that pad level to create that vertical displacement on inside zone. Really nice rep right there on the, the 0 technique. Again, just creating lanes in the run game, something that is really valuable, for his position, obviously, but something that the Steelers are going to, look to do a lot of next year. With Frazier being, 6'2" and 5'8", that puts him in the 20th percentile for the position. But his build does have its advantages. He plays with outstanding leverage, man. When you factor in just kind of that brawler play style, it's a really nice combination to work with. And right here, you see him playing with a really good base, really squatty frame, compact build, and then again, just driving his guy off the ball. Arthur Smith's most popular sidecar shotgun run play is just regular inside zone. We're going to get split zone here with the jet motion to draw the linebacker's eyes. But what I really like about Frazier is that he has a really good feel for knowing when to kind of come off of these what I call like ricochet blocks. So on this rep right here, he's going to get a good bump on this 2-eye, knock him over a gap, and then he's going to climb to the inside shoulder of the play side linebacker. and he's going to end up doing a good job of sealing him off and creating a nice crease for the tailback for a really nice, 9-10 yard run right there for a positive outcome. It's really difficult to explain, but he's got a really good feel for like when defenders are off balance. I think this really goes back to, probably his wrestling background. As you guys are probably all familiar with his decorated accomplishments dating back to his high school days, but right here, and one thing too, like when I was watching like his film or his cut ups, like he probably had more takedowns than any offensive lineman I watched this past cycle. And this is a kind of little savvy technique that I saw him execute a number of different times really throughout the season. Really, he's working laterally right here. He's going to take that backside hand, and once he feels the defender leaning a little bit, he's just going to shove him a little bit to the ground and creating that easy cutback read for the back. So beyond the contributions in the run game, man, like Frazier's a really reliable pass protector. That's something I really like about his film. It really just goes back to what we talked about kind of in the run game too, those traits carrying over the hand usage and just the feel for when defenders get off balanced. And here's another good example, but this time in pass pro. I'm going to pick up this looper on the stunt. He absorbs the power pop, and then he ends up feeling the defender get a little bit out over his skis right here. Then he's going to hit him with a snatch trap move to bury him. We talked at length about the snatch trap move when we did the Fautanu film room, and that's something that Frazier has in his bag as well. But one thing I like too is like his hands are strong. He has good play strength, and he understands how to create some pop with his hands, but they're also really patient in pass pro, and I think that's really important too. A lot of guys that are strong try to go for those knockout blows, but that's not really Frazier's game in pass pro. I like this rep from the Texas game, 2 years ago right here. As he's setting vertically, he never presents his hands too early to allow them to be swiped by the defender. But watch how he feels this nose guard start to get off balance a little bit. Like right here, he starts to stumble, leaning forward, and then he just simply chops that man's hands down, again, sends him to the turf. We get a really nice clean pocket. We get kind of a delayed rusher coming from the linebacker spot, but a really nice job, setting, the depth of the pocket right there. And he plays, with a really wide base. And I feel like, over the course of the season when I watched him up against like bigger interior rushers, especially rushing from, a zero tech or a shade or a one or whatever, he held up really well and was able to, anchor on contact without giving up too much ground. And even when he did, those were really like slow kind of losses up front. So he's a reliable pass protector in those type of situations. While in college, he started 37 games at the pivot, something we talked about a lot during draft season. And it's something that I thought was a really big strength to his profile. And here's a good example, just of kind of like what he brings. But, I think that that experience is going to really accelerate his learning curve. Pre-snap, he's indicating that he's going to be sliding to the right. But as the picture changes, we get this linebacker, he ends up dropping out. Quickly snaps his head to the left to identify this stunt. Again, just looking for work, knowing where teams are trying to threaten him up the middle. And even against teams that like to create, chaos up front, like he rarely seemed phased or confused by games in the trenches. And that was really something that I thought, speaks to his experience, but is also something that's really going to help him because of how creative defensive coordinators are at the NFL level. But with all that being said, there's no such thing as a perfect prospect, right? In terms of weaknesses, I thought that, there were times where quicker interior rushers were able to cross his face and get on his edges relatively easily. Right here on this rep, Penn State's going to align in a 5-0 look, or, what some will refer to as a whiteboard blitz. NFL defensive coordinators are putting their best athletes inside more nowadays. We see this a lot with like Myles Garrett. Micah Parsons is another example. Really, it's just to isolate the center position because this traditionally has been the weakest pass blocker. You see Frazier miss his initial punch right here. He kind of lands on the inside shoulder, missing down the midline. And generally speaking, I thought that his recovery ability when he was initially beaten was just average, meaning his technique, which is good, is just going to have to get even better, I feel like, at the next level where he's going to be going up against bigger, faster, stronger athletes. And just another sort of random observation that I had was that he did struggle at times against defensive tackles aligned in a shade or, kind of a tilted nose towards his snap hand. And I think that really is kind of strange to me. I guess I've never really noticed this with a center, but there was just times where he was kind of late getting that right hand up after the snap, particularly in the shotgun, where defenders were basically able to almost instantly generate, kind of a run through and get on his edge and take advantage, make plays in the backfield. But I'd imagine that that's probably something that can be improved, with coaching. And then finally, I think the main reason that Frazier wasn't selected in the first round is just because like he's merely just kind of a solid or average athlete, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily, but that's probably why like someone didn't feel the need to invest a first round pick in him. I think he's a sufficient athlete for the system because there's so many other parts to his game that impress on film, but he didn't regularly hit his landmarks on reach blocks to like 3 techniques or sometimes just defensive tackles aligned, head up on the guard. You'll see that kind of example right here. Not quite able to get that reach block as that defender is able to make a nice run stop there. And these blocks aren't easy at all, but they do separate, the players at this position, especially in a scheme like this. It's going to run a lot of wide zone, a lot of mid zone. So that's definitely something to monitor. But overall, my kind of projection for Frazier is I feel like he's a year 1 starter, immediate upgrade for the Steelers offensive line. Really tough, good play strength, got a bevy of experience. I think that's going to make for an easier transition. Like I said, after they drafted him, I think he projects kind of like is that 8 to 10 year starter type. He has top 10 potential at his position, capable of probably being like the second or ideally third best offensive lineman on a very good unit sometime in the future. Hopefully that's going to be with Pittsburgh. His ceiling I do feel like is somewhat limited by the fact that he just doesn't possess the same amount of like freakish athleticism that others in the league may have with those skills. But I'm really excited about seeing him in 2024, man. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you all for watching. Lots of exciting stuff in the coming days, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Turn on notifications just on your way out. Please make sure that you like the video, sub to the channel. Drop me a comment to let me know what you thought of the film room. Let me know if there's anybody else that you guys want me to get through training camp, and I will check you guys later this week. Peace and love.